The scorching Texas sun beat down mercilessly on Rebecca Sullivan's trembling body as she collapsed to her knees in the dusty road, her empty stomach twisting with hunger pains so severe they brought tears to her eyes. It was 1873, and the West had shown her nothing but cruelty since she'd fled her home in Boston 3 weeks prior. Her elegant traveling dress, once a fine shade of blue, was now torn and caked with the red-brown dust of the frontier. The last of her money had been spent on a coach ticket that had left her stranded when the axle broke 10 miles outside of Cottonwood Springs. The other passengers had trudged ahead together, but Rebecca, weakened by days without proper food, had fallen behind until she was alone on the empty road. The distant sound of hoofbeats barely registered as she pressed her palms into the dirt, wondering if she'd made the biggest mistake of her 22 years by coming west. The hoofbeats grew louder, but she couldn't find the strength to move. "Madam, you all right down there?" A deep voice called out. Rebecca tried to respond, but her parched throat produced only a dry rasp. Through the curtain of her tangled auburn hair, she saw dust-covered boots step into view, then the tall figure of a man crouched before her. "Looks like you've had a rough go of it," he said, his voice softening as he took in her condition. Strong hands gently gripped her shoulders, and Rebecca found herself being lifted to her feet. She swayed dangerously, and the stranger steadied her against him. "Name's Wade Parker," he said. "I've got some bread and jerky in my saddlebag. You look like you could use it more than me." Rebecca managed to raise her eyes to his face. Beneath the wide brim of a worn leather hat, Wade Parker had the sun-weathered features of a man who lived under open skies. His eyes, a startling shade of blue against his tanned skin, held no judgment, only concern. "Rebecca Sullivan," she whispered. Thank you." Wade guided her to a nearby rock and eased her down. He retrieved a canteen and a cloth-wrapped bundle from his saddlebag, offering her the water first. "Small sips," he cautioned as she grabbed for it desperately. "Too much at once will make you sick." Rebecca nodded and forced herself to drink slowly, the cool water bringing immediate relief to her parched throat. Wade unwrapped the bundle, revealing a half loaf of bread and strips of dried beef. "It's not fancy," he said with a slight smile, "but it'll put some strength back in you." She accepted a piece of bread with trembling fingers. "I don't know how to thank you, Mr. Parker." "Wade," he corrected, settling beside her. "And staying alive would be thanks enough. What's a woman like you doing out here alone?" Rebecca took a small bite of bread, savoring the simple sustenance. "The stage broke down. The others went ahead, but she gestured weakly at herself. "I couldn't keep up." Wade's expression darkened. "They left you behind?" "Bunch of no good," he stopped himself. "Pardon my language. How long have you been walking?" "Since yesterday morning." Rebecca took another careful bite. "I'm trying to reach Cottonwood Springs. I have a position waiting as a schoolteacher." Wade raised an eyebrow. "You've come a long way to teach, I reckon." Rebecca hesitated, unsure how much to reveal to this stranger, but something in his steady gaze made her continue. "Boston became uncomfortable after my father's banking scandal. He's in prison now, and the family name is ruined. This teaching position was my chance to start fresh where no one knows the Sullivan disgrace." She expected to see judgment in his eyes, but instead found only thoughtful understanding. "Out here, most folks are running from something or towards something," Wade said. "The past doesn't much matter if you're willing to work hard and deal straight." He offered her more water, which she gratefully accepted. "Cottonwood Springs is still about 8 miles on. My ranch is 2 miles west from here. You're welcome to rest there, get your strength back before heading into town." Rebecca considered his offer. Under normal circumstances, she would never consider accompanying a strange man to his home. But these were hardly normal circumstances, and something about Wade Parker's straightforward manner inspired trust. "I'd be most grateful," she replied. "If it's not too much trouble." "No trouble at all." Wade helped her to her feet and led her to his horse, a sturdy chestnut gelding. "This is Rusty. He's used to carrying double." With surprising gentleness for a man of his size, Wade lifted Rebecca onto the saddle before mounting behind her. She stiffened at the unfamiliar proximity as his arms came around her to take the reins, but her exhaustion quickly overcame her propriety, and she found herself leaning back against his solid chest. "Rest if you need to," Wade said softly near her ear. I won't let you fall. As they rode, Rebecca drifted in and out of consciousness, vaguely aware of the steady rhythm of the horse beneath them and the secure presence of the man behind her. When she opened her eyes again, they were approaching a modest ranch house nestled against a backdrop of rocky hills and scattered oak trees. "Welcome to the Lazy P," Wade said. "It's not much, but it's home." A worn wooden sign bearing a stylized P hung over the gate. Beyond it, Rebecca could see a barn, a corral with several horses, and a small garden plot beside the main house. Everything about the place spoke of hard work and careful maintenance. Wade dismounted first, then reached up to help Rebecca down. Her legs buckled as her feet touched the ground, and he caught her easily, sweeping her into his arms. "I can walk," she protested weakly. "I'm sure you can, but humor me," Wade replied with a hint of a smile. "My mother would haunt me something fierce if she knew I let an exhausted lady stagger into my home when I have perfectly good arms to carry her." Too tired to argue further, Rebecca allowed herself to be carried into the house. The interior was simple but clean, with a main room containing a stone fireplace, a wooden table with chairs, and a few pieces of sturdy furniture. Wade placed her gently in an upholstered armchair. "I'll fix you something more substantial to eat," he said, moving to the kitchen area. "Then you can rest properly." Rebecca watched as he efficiently built up the fire in the cook stove and began preparing a meal. "Do you live here alone?" she asked. Wade nodded as he worked. "Since my pa passed 3 years back. My younger brother Daniel comes by when he's not working his own spread about 10 miles south. Otherwise, it's just me and a ranch hand named Miguel who helps with the cattle. He's out checking the north pasture today." "I'm sorry about your father," Rebecca said softly. Wade acknowledged her sympathy with a slight nod. "He had a good life. Taught us everything we know about ranching. My ma died when I was 12, so pa raised us boys on his own." "You've done well for yourself," Rebecca observed, looking around the modest but comfortable home. "We get by," Wade replied, bringing her a cup of coffee. "It's not always easy, but I wouldn't trade this life for anything." As Rebecca sipped the strong, hot coffee, she felt warmth returning to her body. The simple kindness of this stranger was overwhelming after weeks of hardship and rejection. "Why are you helping me?" she asked suddenly. Wade looked up from the stove, seeming genuinely puzzled by the question. "Why wouldn't I? Found a person in need on the road. Wouldn't be right to just ride on by." "Many would have," Rebecca said quietly. "Then many aren't living right," Wade replied simply. "My pa always said you measure a man by how he treats those who can do nothing for him in return." Rebecca felt tears welling in her eyes, which she quickly blinked away. "Your father sounds like a wise man." "He had his moments," Wade said with a fond smile. Soon, a simple but hearty meal of beans, bacon, and fresh biscuits was placed before her. Rebecca ate slowly, mindful of her empty stomach, while Wade told her about Cottonwood Springs and the surrounding area. Town's growing fast since the railroad spur came through last year. Good people mostly. Sheriff Larson keeps the peace well enough. The school's been without a proper teacher for almost 6 months, so folks will be mighty pleased to see you. After the meal, exhaustion overtook Rebecca completely. Wade showed her to a small bedroom that had belonged to his mother. "Rest as long as you need," he said, lingering at the doorway. "I've got chores to tend to, but I'll be around if you need anything." Rebecca sank onto the edge of the bed, overcome with gratitude. "Mr. Parker Wade, I don't know how I'll ever repay your kindness." "Nothing to repay," he said with a gentle smile. "Just get your strength back. Tomorrow, if you're feeling better, I'll take you into town." After he left, Rebecca lay down on the clean, simple bed and was asleep almost instantly. She woke to early morning light filtering through curtained windows. For a moment, she was disoriented, then remembered the events of the previous day. The delicious smell of coffee and cooking food drifted through the door, and her stomach growled in response. After using the wash basin to freshen up as best she could, Rebecca emerged from the bedroom to find Wade at the stove. "Good morning," he said, glancing over his shoulder. "Hope the smell of breakfast might rouse you. How are you feeling?" "Much better, thank you," Rebecca replied, surprised to find it was true. The food, water, and rest had restored her considerably. "Glad to hear it. Have a seat. Coffee's hot." Rebecca sat at the table, accepting the cup he offered. I should really get to town today. The school board is expecting me, and I'm already late. Wade nodded as he placed a plate of eggs and bacon before her. I'll take you in after breakfast. Sent Miguel with a message yesterday letting folks know you'd arrived, but needed rest. The boarding house has a room ready for you. You've thought of everything, Rebecca said, touched by his consideration. Wade shrugged, just being neighborly. After breakfast, Rebecca insisted on helping with the dishes despite Wade's protests. As they worked side by side, she found herself studying him from the corner of her eye. In the morning light, she could better appreciate his features, the strong line of his jaw, the laugh lines at the corners of his eyes, the way his dark hair curled slightly at the nape of his neck where it met his collar. He caught her looking and raised an eyebrow questioningly. Rebecca blushed and quickly returned her attention to the plate she was drying. I was just thinking how different you are from the men I knew in Boston, she said hastily. Different good or different bad? Wade asked with a hint of amusement. Different good, Rebecca admitted. Very different good. Wade's smile warmed his entire face, and Rebecca felt something flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with hunger or exhaustion. An hour later, they were on the road to Cottonwood Springs, this time with Rebecca riding a gentle mare Wade had saddled for her. As they approached the town, Rebecca felt a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. What if they don't like me? She asked suddenly. Wade glanced over at her. They'd be fools not to, he said simply. The town of Cottonwood Springs sprawled before them, a collection of wooden buildings lining a main street, with houses and smaller businesses spreading outward. People moved about their business, and wagon traffic created a steady background noise. Wade led Rebecca to a two-story building with a sign identifying it as Gibson's boarding house. A plump, gray-haired woman emerged onto the porch as they approached. You must be Miss Sullivan, she called out. We were starting to worry when you didn't arrive with the stage. Mrs. Gibson, I presume? Rebecca dismounted with Wade's assistance. I apologize for the delay. The stage had an accident, and if not for Mr. Parker's kindness, I might still be on the road. Mrs. Gibson beamed at Wade. Trust Wade Parker to be the one rescuing damsels in distress. He's one of our finest bachelors, you know. She winked at Rebecca, who felt her cheeks warm. Mrs. Gibson, Wade said with the tip of his hat, his own face slightly flushed. Miss Sullivan was in a bad way when I found her. Just did what anyone would do. Nonsense, the older woman replied. Not everyone has your heart, Wade Parker. She turned to Rebecca. Come inside, dear. I've got your room all ready, and there's hot water for a bath if you'd like to refresh yourself before meeting the school board. Rebecca turned to Wade, suddenly reluctant to part from him. I don't know how to thank you for everything. No thanks needed, he said, his blue eyes holding hers. I'm in town most Saturdays for supplies. Perhaps I could call on you sometime? Rebecca felt a smile spread across her face. I'd like that very much. Then it's settled, Wade said, looking pleased. Good luck with the school board, Miss Sullivan. I have a feeling Cottonwood Springs is going to suit you just fine. As Rebecca watched him ride away, Mrs. Gibson chuckled beside her. My dear, if you could see your face right now, I'd say Wade Parker has made quite an impression. Rebecca couldn't deny it. In less than a day, the kind cowboy had indeed made more of an impression than any man she'd ever met. The next week passed in a whirlwind as Rebecca settled into her new role as Cottonwood Springs schoolteacher. The school board had been relieved by her arrival and impressed with her credentials from a prestigious Boston women's college. The schoolhouse was small but well-maintained, and her 12 students ranged from 6 to 16 years of age. Each day brought new challenges and rewards as Rebecca adjusted to frontier life. Mrs. Gibson proved to be a font of local knowledge and a motherly presence, while the townspeople welcomed her warmly. But despite her busy schedule, Rebecca found her thoughts frequently turning to Wade Parker. Saturday morning arrived with Rebecca feeling an anticipation she hadn't experienced in years. She chose her best dress, a sage green cotton with modest lace trim, and arranged her auburn hair with extra care. Mrs. Gibson noticed her efforts at breakfast and smiled knowingly, but said nothing. Wade arrived promptly at 11, freshly shaved and wearing a clean shirt under his usual vest and coat. He carried a small bouquet of wildflowers, which he presented to Rebecca with an endearing mixture of confidence and uncertainty. These grow near the creek on my property, he said. Thought you might like them. They're beautiful, Rebecca replied, breathing in their subtle fragrance. Thank you. They walked through town together, Wade pointing out various establishments and introducing Rebecca to people they encountered. His easy manner helped relieve her nervousness, and soon they were conversing as comfortably as old friends. How are you finding teaching? Wade asked as they paused outside the general store. Challenging but rewarding, Rebecca replied. The children are eager to learn, though their previous education has been inconsistent. Wade chuckled. That's a diplomatic way of saying old Mr. Fenwick was more interested in his whiskey bottle than his primers. I couldn't possibly comment, Rebecca said primly, but her eyes sparkled with amusement. They continued their walk, eventually settling on a bench near the small town square. Wade seemed to be building up to something, his fingers tapping restlessly against his knee. Miss Sullivan, Rebecca, I was wondering if you might consider joining me for dinner at the hotel restaurant next Saturday, he finally said. They serve a fine roast beef. Rebecca felt a warm glow of pleasure. I would be delighted, Mr. Parker Wade. His smile was like sunrise breaking over the hills. Well then, that's just fine. That dinner led to another, and soon Wade was a regular caller at the boarding house. Mrs. Gibson observed their growing attachment with approval, though she didn't hesitate to remind Rebecca of the proprieties. He's a good man, dear, she said one evening after Wade had departed. But remember, reputations are fragile things out here, especially for a schoolteacher. I assure you, Mrs. Gibson, my behavior has been above reproach, Rebecca replied. The older woman patted her hand. Of course it has. I'm just saying, when a man and woman look at each other the way you two do, people notice. Rebecca blushed, but couldn't deny the truth of her words. Her feelings for Wade had grown steadily deeper with each meeting, each conversation revealing more of his character, his integrity, his quiet humor, his devotion to his land, and the people he cared for. As autumn approached, Wade invited Rebecca to the Lazy Pea for Sunday dinner. Mrs. Gibson agreed to chaperone, making the outing entirely proper. The ranch looked different to Rebecca, now not just a haven in her moment of desperate need, but a working home that reflected Wade's character in every detail. He showed them the improvements he'd made since her first visit. A new fence for the garden, freshly painted shutters on the windows, flowers planted along the walkway. The place looks different, Mrs. Gibson observed with a knowing glance between Wade and Rebecca. Just sprucing things up a bit, Wade replied, not quite meeting her eyes. The meal was simple but delicious: roast chicken, vegetables from Wade's garden, and an apple pie that Wade admitted had been baked by his neighbor Mrs. Caldwell. Cooking's not my strong suit, he confessed with a smile. A wise man knows his limitations, Mrs. Gibson said approvingly. After the meal, Mrs. Gibson conveniently found herself tired and in need of a rest on the porch swing, leaving Wade and Rebecca to walk the property with the understanding they would remain within sight. They strolled toward the corral, where several horses grazed peacefully. Your ranch is beautiful, Wade, Rebecca said, genuinely impressed by what he had built. It's a good life, he replied. Hard sometimes, but good. He hesitated, then continued. Been thinking it might be better shared, though. Rebecca's heart quickened. Oh. Wade stopped walking and turned to face her. Rebecca, I know we haven't known each other long, but sometimes a person just knows when something's right. He took her hands in his. I'm not an educated man like the gentleman you knew back east, and I can't offer you fine things or city life. But I can promise you a good home, honest work, and a man who'll cherish you every day of his life. Rebecca felt tears spring to her eyes as Wade continued. What I'm trying to say, not very elegantly, is that I love you, Rebecca Sullivan. Would you do me the great honor of becoming my wife? The words she had secretly hoped to hear filled her with joy. Yes, she whispered. Yes, Wade, I would be proud to be your wife. His face lit with happiness as he drew her close, pressing a gentle kiss to her lips there first. Rebecca felt the rightness of it down to her bones, as though her entire life had been leading to this moment, this man. From the porch, Mrs. Gibson discreetly averted her eyes, a satisfied smile on her face. The news of their engagement spread quickly through Cottonwood Springs, met with general approval and only a few disappointed sighs from young women who had harbored hopes regarding the handsome rancher. The school board, after initial concern about losing their teacher, agreed that Rebecca could continue teaching until the end of the term in December, with the wedding to follow during the Christmas break. The weeks leading up to the wedding were filled with preparations. Rebecca wrote to her aunt in Boston, the only family member with whom she still corresponded, sharing her happiness and receiving a warm, if surprised, response. Wade and his brother Daniel worked to add a new room to the ranch house and make other improvements before Rebecca's arrival as mistress of the home. Their wedding day dawned clear and cold, the December sky a brilliant blue. The small church in Cottonwood Springs was decorated with pine boughs and red ribbons for the Christmas season, with extra candles lighting the simple space for the occasion. Rebecca wore a new dress of deep blue wool, with a lace collar that Mrs. Gibson had contributed from her own treasured possessions. Wade, looking both nervous and proud in his best suit, waited at the altar with his brother beside him as best man. As Rebecca walked down the aisle on the arm of Sheriff Larson, who had kindly offered to give her away, she reflected on the extraordinary path that had led her to this moment. From desperate hunger on a dusty road to this day of profound joy, all because a kind cowboy had stopped to help a stranger in need. The ceremony was brief but heartfelt, their voices clear and steady as they exchanged vows before the minister and their gathered friends. When they were pronounced husband and wife, Wade's kiss was tender yet promising, causing several appreciative chuckles from the congregation. The celebration moved to the hotel dining room, where the entire town seemed to have gathered to share in their happiness. There was music, dancing, and enough food to feed twice their number, the community's wedding gift to the popular couple. As evening approached, Wade and Rebecca slipped away to begin the journey to their home now. Rebecca reminded herself with a thrill of joy. The ranch house welcomed them with golden lamplight, a blazing fire in the hearth, and the promise of a future built together. Wade carried Rebecca across the threshold, a gesture that made her laugh with delight. "Welcome home, Mrs. Parker," he said, his voice husky with emotion. "It's good to be home," Rebecca replied, knowing she had found where she truly belonged. Later, as they lay together in the quiet darkness of their bedroom, Rebecca traced the contours of her husband's face with gentle fingers. "Do you ever think about how different our lives might have been if you hadn't found me that day?" she asked softly. Wade caught her hand and pressed a kiss to her palm. "I thank God every day that I was on that road at that moment," he said. "Some might call it chance, but I call it providence." "From hunger to happiness," Rebecca murmured. "It seems almost like a fairy tale." "Real life's better than any fairy tale," Wade replied, drawing her closer. "Because this is just the beginning of our story, not the end." As the years passed, Wade's words proved true. Their life together was no fairy tale. It held struggles, setbacks, and sorrows alongside the joys. The ranch faced drought one year, devastating floods the next. Rebecca's first pregnancy ended in heartbreaking loss. But through it all, their love remained steady, a foundation that weathered every storm. In time, they were blessed with 3 healthy children, 2 sons, and a daughter who filled the expanded ranch house with laughter and energy. Rebecca continued to contribute to the community's education, hosting regular reading circles for neighboring families, and eventually helping to establish a proper library in Cottonwood Springs. Wade's careful management and hard work allowed the Lazy P to prosper, becoming one of the most respected ranches in the county. Together, they built a legacy of love, integrity, and community service that extended far beyond their property lines. On their 20th anniversary, Wade surprised Rebecca with a special dinner under the stars, reminiscent of their courtship days. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked as they sat hand in hand, watching the moon rise over the hills they both loved. "Giving up Boston society for a dusty ranch and a rough cowboy?" Rebecca turned to him, her face softened by the years but still alight with the same love that had grown since that first fateful meeting. "Not for a single moment," she said with complete conviction. "You lifted me up when I was at my lowest, shared your bread when I was hungry, and gave me your heart when I didn't even know I was looking for love. Everything good in my life began with you, Wade Parker." Wade's eyes shone in the moonlight as he leaned forward to kiss his wife, their love as fresh and true as it had been on that dusty road so many years before. Their story became something of a legend in Cottonwood Springs, passed down through generations, a tale of kindness rewarded, of hunger satisfied by more than just bread, of two lives transformed by a simple act of human compassion on a lonely western road. And though the lazy pea eventually passed to their children and then their grandchildren, the lesson of Wade and Rebecca's love story remained. That sometimes the greatest journeys begin when we fall to our knees, and the greatest loves start with the simple offering of bread to a stranger in need.